As a dramatist with a growing career as a BBC scriptwriter, Elaine Morgan turned these skills to popular science writing. She gathered together all the books she could find on the subject and began to list all the differences between humans and the apes. The result was Elaine Morgan's first book. It poked fun at the male-centered view of evolution and was an immediate sensation, and she traveled overseas to promote it. Across the USA, she was an instant media celebrity, moving from station to station on television and radio chat shows.
We're back, and our guest is Elaine Morgan, who is the author of The Descent of Woman.
Our guest on Meet the Newsmaker this week is Elaine Morgan, a housewife from Wales, who's created a stir in the literary and anthropological worlds with her book, The Descent of Woman. It's probably the first book that deals with a woman's viewpoint of evolution.
She met the leading feminists of the day, and using the same provocative and humorous style of her book, she made fun of the sexist images of our history and taunted the male-dominated world of science.
I think it's to even them out a little, yeah.
The message of her book was clear. Women were equal partners with men in our evolutionary past, and the key to that past was water. In The Descent of Woman, Elaine Morgan claimed that humans once lived, ate, and reproduced in water. She believed that this aquatic phase was the missing link in our past. Like sea mammals, but unlike all land mammals, we developed an insulating fat layer and lost most of our hair. The hair that did remain appears to follow the flow of water as it passes over our bodies, while the hair on the head would have provided a handhold for the infants to cling onto. And if they let go, that was no problem. They could hold their breath underwater or float on the surface. The story seemed to make sense, but how was it received?
After Elaine had published The Descent of Woman, there was a long period of silence. Nothing much happened. The academic reaction to Alistair's theory and to Elaine's promotion of it was simply to ignore it.
Those who did comment claimed that it was all too far-fetched. Most studies of wild primates had indicated that they kept well away from water.
One objection to the aquatic ape theory is that people say primates are afraid of water. But in the first place, if they can get anything out of the water, if they need to cross water, they will wade across it. If they can get food from it, they will wade in it.
In the 1960s, few primates were known to live in association with water. But in the flooded forests and mangrove swamps of Borneo lives the proboscis monkey. This primate not only wades from tree to tree, but is also a strong swimmer and can even swim underwater. But anthropologists had their minds on more important things than the fanciful theories of a Welsh housewife. They were finding their savanna people. In South Africa and later East Africa, Australopithecus fossils had been turning up steadily since the 1930s. Then in 1974, in Ethiopia, in the northern part of the Great Rift Valley, they unearthed what they believed to be our oldest ancestor. Leading anthropologist Don Johansen tells the story.
We picked up a piece of the skull. It was obvious that it couldn't be from anything except a hominid. And then we saw other pieces that just were almost like they were popping out of the sediments, but yet they were there the whole time. And we both looked at one another and we said, it really looks like it's it. And what we meant by it was a skeleton.
Johansen and his team had found something extraordinary. A fossil hominid with a small ape-like skull similar to the one described by Raymond Dart. They called her Australopithecus afarensis and nicknamed her Lucy. She walked upright, with a pelvis and knee almost like a modern human's, but like other apes, she had a small brain. This showed that two-leggedness had evolved long before large brains and tool-making. And Lucy told us something more. The split from apes was thought to have taken place 15 to 20 million years ago. But Lucy, dated by potassium-argon decay rates, was placed at about 3 million years old. If the Lucy fossil was a two-legged link between modern humans and the apes, then the split was much more recent than anyone imagined, just over 5 million years ago. Johansen and his team claimed the human family tree needed to be redrawn, and that started another big anthropological debate. Then, a few years later, Johansen's claims were supported by the famous fossil hunter Mary Leakey, who made a further sensational discovery. She found, preserved in a bed of volcanic ash, the fossilized footprints of 3 of these early ancestors. 2 appeared to be walking side by side, with another following in the footsteps of the others. Dated at 3.6 million years old, this was clear evidence that a human ancestor was walking on 2 legs. The path from ape to human was becoming clearer. There was now some order to the sequence of events that shaped humanity. Walking upright, rather than being the final step in the transition from ape to human, had come first. This was the moment when human history began, and scientists now had to ask what made early humans first stand up. Elaine Morgan seized upon this new evidence to support her own explanations.
Well, the discovery of Lucy transformed the whole picture, and I was very happy about it. For one thing, she wasn't found on the arid savanna. She was found in quite lush and leafy surroundings. For another thing, she was found in the north. It's a part of Africa which was subject to extensive sea flooding, and Lucy's fossil was discovered near the edge of what had been that inland sea.
Along the length of the African Rift Valley is a chain of great lakes, and beside these lie some of the oldest fossil sites. But go back 6 million years, and there was extensive sea flooding over parts of northern Africa. This rise in sea level overwhelmed the Danakil area to the north, leaving only one island of high ground, the Danakil Alps. If the first human fossil sites do date back to the time when the ancient sea covered areas of northeast Africa, could it have been along these shores that the first humans evolved? Elaine Morgan thinks so.
If they were isolated on that island, that would explain how they had separate development proceeding very rapidly without any interbreeding with the land apes.
A new discipline, molecular biology, was revolutionizing how we studied our evolutionary history. Away from the fossil sites, scientists were beginning to reconstruct the past without reference to a single fossil. There is a library of information hidden in our genes. With this new source of evidence, scientists were able to pinpoint the split from apes not from bone fragments, but from DNA. What they found was that the split happened about 5 million years ago, shortly before the time of Lucy and of the fossil footprints. So all the evidence, the climate, the fossils, and the genetics were combining to paint a new picture of an ape-like ancestor who took to 2 legs, lived near water, and hadn't been around nearly as long as one thought. Soon it was revealed that they weren't nearly as bloodthirsty either. The killer ape ideas that had originated with Raymond Dart were challenged by South African scientist Bob Brain.
It was such a wonderfully forceful argument that he put forward for the killer ape, you know, and suggesting that at that time, even 2-3 million years ago, that our ancestors were powerful hunters, able to kill virtually any animal in the environment, to bring their bones back to the caves where they ate them, and where they selected some of the bones for tools and weapons.
Bob Brain's interpretation was very different, though. The ape ancestor was not so much the killer as the victim. What he found in abundance were the skulls, teeth, and other bones of ape men, baboons, and antelopes. Many skulls had clear bite marks that matched the fossil teeth of saber-toothed cats and other large carnivores of the time. Our first ancestors, the Australopithecines, were not the hunters, but the prey. While this new evidence didn't contradict her theory, at home in Wales, Elaine Morgan had almost given up her struggle in support of the aquatic ape theory. Then she received an unexpected boost.
I hadn't intended to write any more about the subject, but then after about 7 or 8 years I began getting letters from an American policeman who was very keen on the idea. He thought I should write more, and also he had written to all kinds of famous and important people in the field asking them what they thought of it, and he sent me copies of their letters. And the one thing that came across was, although they disliked it very much, there didn't seem any very clear reasons given why they disliked it, and certainly nothing which proved to me that I was wrong.
Like Elaine, Chuck Millikan was not a specialist, just a layman with an inquiring mind, someone not afraid to ask questions. But each of his letters was met with a similar response from scientists: fantasy, over-fertile imagination. He sent these on to Elaine Morgan, and this wholesale rejection inspired Elaine to write a new book. It was published in 1980. This time she avoided the distracting humor and feminism of The Descent of Woman and took the savannah theory head-on. She believed the missing link between apes and humans could not logically have lived on a savannah.
The kind of questions that the savannah theory was completely failing to answer were particularly questions to do with the soft tissue, like the skin, the fat and the flesh. They're unable to explain why we're the only savannah animal to have lost its fur, and why we're the only savannah animal to have got layers of fat under the skin.
But people most familiar with these features were medical scientists, and one was already publishing papers showing how different we were from other savannah animals.
The anthropologists have a quite different view on this. They see only the bones and they find them in dry environments, but as a doctor you have to deal with living people. You see the soft tissues, you see the fat and the hair and all these problems and these resemblances with sea mammals. Of course, when I speak for doctors, they are always much more open to this aquatic theory than anthropologists are.
Savannah theorists explained it like this: perhaps growing fat and losing fur might be a compromise to regulate body temperature on the hot savannah. The aquatic ape supporters claimed that in air, hair is a far better insulator than fat and gives protection from the hot rays of the sun. Fat is a far better insulator in water and would only slow down an animal living in an open habitat. Fat and nakedness both appear to be poor savannah adaptations. The only other fat, hairless mammals are found in waterholes and rivers. So is human fat, like the blubber of aquatic animals, a way of keeping warm in water? Many anthropologists, including Adrian Zillman, think the aquatic ape theory makes too much of this.